So it'll be live in any second now. You can start seeing the screen. But once it does, tell you. Okay, so now we're live and we are sitting here with Victoria. As I mentioned to everyone, we learned how to organize ourselves, get everything together, do a mental. However, this is a different type of mental. This is that you're doing too much session. This is the one that says, no, this is how you truly slow it down and get focused. Just a small thing to everyone. One of the things that I do a lot is I meditate. Like when I know I'm going a little bit too overboard, this is like what I do. So this is the world I kind of live in, so I have to pull it together. So it's great to have Victoria here that's like saying, hey, do a time check. And she's going to give you all that information in the next 40 minutes. So I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, and I'm going to leave the stage and let her run with it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so stoked, guys. This is the coolest. Just do me a favor. I don't know if y'all can go in the comments or not, but is that a thing? I don't know if that's what if people are able to do that. But if you can, I'd love to know your name, where you're coming from, and what you do. So I'm Victoria B. Wickler. I am a mindfulness and meditation coach for underestimated people. I define an underestimated person as somebody who has, there's a glare in my glasses, as somebody who has been left out of an equation, or it can be something also. Who wrote that equation? That's like a conversation for another time. I could do a whole other thing about that, but let's focus on the people who have been left out, right? And everybody has felt underestimated at some point. So I do work, yes, to pacify stress, to calm down, to come back into your body and back into your roots, so that you can work with more optimal awareness and stamina. But also there's an underlying fact that when you turn towards your body, when you turn towards stress, towards the things that make you uncomfortable in the pursuit of calming down, you find some uncomfortable things. And so I'm encouraging you, and will continue to encourage you throughout this talk, to turn towards those points of stress and actually leverage them as power, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, if you have a startup, and if you're trying to gain momentum and gain resources here. Okay, I'm really excited about this. As for me, I've occupied a lot of spaces. I have followed shamans around. I even got shamanic rites at some point in my life. I've helped businesses, small businesses, bigger companies, VR and tech get their shit together spiritually and organize their team dynamic accordingly, based on personalities and energy. I was creative director for virtual reality to create cultural empathy. I have worked on productions at Burning Man. I have visited prisons talking about mindfulness. I have worked with at-risk kids and inner city folks talking about mindfulness. I've been to Berlin. I've been to Southeast Asia. I've been to all these places talking about this stuff. And it seems really random at times, but the most common denominator is that mindfulness, which I'll also define for you and explain in a second, is it's versatile and you can find it anywhere. And I've been really, really interested in this whole entire experience of trying to just figure out where this stuff fits. Really interested in how and why communities, businesses, people, entrepreneurs, how and why they thrive. Not just survive, but thrive, like for yourself, for your families, and for the generations behind you. Really interested in how people survive. Mindfulness is a part of that. It's in our roots. So let's do a little story time. Because mindfulness for me, which I define as moment-to-moment non-judgmental awareness, which I'll teach you how to incorporate into your business strategies, team building, and excellence. Mindfulness isn't something that I was just like, that's cool, I took a class and now I want it to be my life. Mindfulness is actually something that I had to do in order to survive and then thrive, right? I wrote recently in the introduction of an upcoming book that I learned about mindfulness before it was cool, or before I knew it could be cool. And that's because I was 15 when I learned about mindfulness practices. And when you're 15, nothing is cool, nothing is impressive, and everything sucks. And so I was in public high school, a large public high school in the United States in the greater Philadelphia area, an area that is known to be like in the middle of rough and in the city and like in the country. So it's this uncomfortable place. Lots of fights happened in that school, lots of drug use and all those things. I did not do well in that environment, not at all. I was showing up to class late all the time. I had insomnia, so I didn't sleep at night. I was dealing with a lot of at-home stress, violence, and trauma. I was unable to concentrate. I had mental differences, or what other people would know as mental illness. I was highly sensitive and highly creative. There were times where I couldn't stop creating. I couldn't stop making like big pieces of art and things like that, generating ideas and writing poetry. So I'd stay up all the time. I was troubled. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I was also a class clown. So I was maintaining a bright and shiny identity of like, everything is fine, but everything was not fine. So there's one day in particular that I remember that really changed my life. It was the day that I got in trouble. I came to school late. I was running down the hall with a cup of coffee, spilling it all over my arm. And before I got to the classroom, I like put on this class clown mask. This teacher in particular really didn't like me. His name was Mr. Klein. And this was a day where we got into an argument and he took my backpack and threw it out into the hallway. And he said, I don't care where you go. I don't care what happens to you. Just get out. Can you imagine? So I took my backpack and I walked out. And I thought I was fine. I was just walking through the halls. And then all of a sudden, this wave came over me. And this is what I now know as a panic attack. I had my first big panic attack. I started seeing all these dots and I couldn't figure out where I was anymore. And I could just keep hearing his voice. Just get out. I don't care what happens to you. I don't care where you go. Just leave. And I just walked out. I walked out of school like a lone lamb leaving the farm. And not a single person looked for me. Not a single person turned their head or told me I couldn't do that. It was just me and my backpack, and I walked into our little bohemian town. It was just that easy. It was just that easy to get out of something that wasn't working for me. So on that same day, I walked to my friend Ray's house, and Ray went to this special school. It was a mindfulness school for at-risk kids. And I actually started skipping public school to go visit their school. And they just let me in with kindness. I wasn't a problem. I wasn't a burden. They let me eat lunch. You got to take your shoes off there. It was awesome. And I had the privilege to attend that school. So my first day of that school, and this is where I learned mindfulness. The first day of that school, I was late. I ran through the doors with my cup of coffee and a breakfast sandwich. And I took my shoes off, ran to the dojo, the meditation room, opened it to a quiet room of kids sitting in a circle with their heads down. And I was like, and on my way over to interrupt the whole entire thing, on my way over to my meditation cushion, I slipped. And in the middle of the room, right in front of the teacher who was presenting his meditation, I just slipped on the hardwood floor. Coffee everywhere. It was the worst thing in the world. And I was so ready to get in trouble. I was so ready to get kicked out, to be treated like I was a delinquent. And the craziest thing happened. There was multiple kids who got up and just assumed taking care of it. Not a single ounce of judgment. A few of us cleaned up the coffee. No big deal. And I sat in my meditation cushion, not in trouble. Nobody laughed at me. Nothing. We pressed on. Non-judgmental, just boom. And that was awesome. And it's super weird for me. So after meditation, I was asked to sit in front of the teacher. And I was like, okay, now is when I get in trouble, right? So I sat in front of the teacher and he smiled at me. He was like, you must be the new one. I was like, yes, sir. And he said, you know, every time you're late, you're going to have to teach the Dharma. And I said, I don't know what a Dharma is. He said, well, it's like a lesson without an answer. And by saying that lesson, everybody gets to interpret it. They get to sit on that, and that's their meditation. So a Dharma is like a prompt for a meditation. And he said, okay, let me give you an example. Your Dharma is you're late. Okay, but the truth is maybe you're late because you didn't sleep very well. Maybe you're late because you've got stuff going on at home. Maybe you're late because you don't feel like a part of the group yet. And you didn't know who to talk to, so you just came in not having to deal with anybody. Whatever it is, that's your meditation. And if you detach from that answer, then you can adjust and move accordingly. And then you can teach yourself and others with that lesson. Mind-blowing to me. And naturally, I was late basically every day. So I taught the Dharma every single day when I was in high school. So I started teaching mindfulness because, one, I was delinquent and I was being bad. But two, because it was saving my life. I learned two things in just that day, the first day of school, of mindfulness school. One, I had been underestimated from that point, or from every moment before that point. I was being treated like I was less than. I was being treated like I wasn't smart, like I wasn't responsible. So I started to embody that. Right conditions, given a moment of silence, given some attention, I was able to realize my power, that actually I'm a teacher. And actually, it's no big deal. I can teach every day. And then I also learned about mindfulness, moment to moment, non-judgmental awareness, that with detachment, I can actually say, okay, I have something here, right? And so every space that I've occupied from then on has been done with a sense of mindfulness and a sense of what happens when you go into underestimated spaces. When you go into an underestimated space, how can you use mindfulness to cultivate power instead of a lack thereof? So this is the place where I'm speaking from today. This is the place where I think all of you in some way have come from. There is not a single entrepreneur who creates an idea that they don't resonate with. You can't stop creating. That's literally your thing. We create solutions for people. And you spend every single day at risk of failure. You know, 80% of entrepreneurs fail, but you show up every single day knowing that. There's no way that you're doing this just because you have a cool idea that you came up with. You wouldn't put yourself at risk every single day if you didn't know in your bones that you were lifting up a part of you that has had a piece of you taken away at some point. If you weren't underestimated, you wouldn't be doing this. If there was already space for you, you wouldn't be needing to make space. You feel me? So yes, I'm talking about calming down, moment to moment, like thriving. But I'm also talking about when you go into that place of comfort, what do you find? When you have that power of stamina and stillness, what do you find there? Can you cultivate enough power to help yourself lean into stress rather than try to avoid stress? Because the stuff that you find there is hard to deal with. And that's also your weak spot. That's also the places that your competition looks for. Wherever you don't have resources, wherever you don't have community, wherever you don't have meaning cultivated. That's a weak spot. But it's also your point of leverage, right? So you need to be mindful in finding and strengthening those points of truth for you. So let's do a micro practice together. You can go ahead, you can close your eyes or you can just visualize this with me. It'll work much better if you close your eyes, but like nobody's looking at you, so it's up to you. But you can go ahead and close your eyes. And we'll do this practice again at the end in a little bit of a different way. But feel yourself into your body. You take a deep breath and exhale. If you missed that one, do it again. Inhale. Exhale. And I want you to visualize that you're walking into a conference room and you have something to pitch. And I want you to imagine that the person sitting on the end of that conference table is somebody who makes you very nervous, somebody who makes you feel small. It could be, and this is fantastical, so it could be a parent, it could be an ex-spouse or an ex-partner, it could be an old teacher, it could be somebody who has hurt you, it could be someone you're afraid of, like a CEO or a future employer or your employer, but somebody who makes you feel small, someone who makes you feel nervous to expose yourself in front of. Imagine yourself walking into that conference room and imagining that the person that you need to pitch to is somebody who truly scares you. Feel that into your body. How does that make your body feel? How could you imagine that going down? Do your shoulders go back? Do you go up? Do you tighten your diaphragm? Does your heart start to beat? Like, what happens to you? For me, if I go into a scary situation, I become hyper confident. My shoulders go back, my chest goes out, my diaphragm goes in, I slink, I tilt my chin up, and I try to be more confident than I feel. So take notice of your body during stress. And I want you to lean into the rest of this talk, keeping that feeling in mind. And so go ahead and back out of this conference room, back out of the person that you are sitting in front of or pitching in front of. Come back into your space and back into the room. And give yourself another deep breath in and out. And from that body feeling, what do you know about that feeling in your bones? I want you to ask yourself that. I think a lot of the ways in which we deal with this entrepreneurship illusion is that we're in this alone. We need to fight. We need to overwork to prove that we're worthy of our idea being pushed into the future. We need to hold that stress. How many times have you heard other people or you yourself, somebody asks how you're doing, and you say, oh, I'm just working so hard, I'm so exhausted. Why are you saying that? Like, what's the truth under that truth? Are you saying that because you want people to know how hard you're working? Why do you have to explain the joke? You know, like if you have to explain the joke, it's not funny. You have to explain that you're working so hard, there's something else going on. So what's the truth under the truth there? You should be feeling good. You should be feeling energized. You should be feeling resilient. You should be feeling energy and stamina. And that comes from rest and taking care of yourself and distributing power, not holding it all in yourself. That will create a weak spot and create a risk. And that will allow you to join that 80% of failure. So how do we create resilience in these spaces? By adding mindfulness to our repertoire. That's what we're talking about. One thing is that I often say that the dog-eat-dog fantasy is man-made. Ask the wolves. Wolves come from, work together, they distribute challenges, distribute each role accordingly. Leaders walk in the back as to protect and oversee everything, while the rest of the pack walks accordingly in terms of power. If you can distribute risk amongst a group of people that you trust, people of your blood, of your passion, then mitigating those risks as a company become much easier. Numbers are a lot stronger than this illusion of the lone CEO doing it alone. I know everybody kind of wants that, but to be honest, any company that has had the resilience to thrive over years and years and years and years and generations happen because of their ability to change and their ability to distribute risk, or the ability to hold risk. So that's one thing. Family and community. These are things we learn from our ancestors, by the way. Nobody needs to look into the future to new and better group dynamic. No, we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing this. At some point we lost it, but we've been doing this. What had to happen to bring you here? What are those things, right? So family, community, distributing tasks and dynamics so that like the more people you have in your repertoire, like your group that can rest, the stronger your company can become. Having moments of awareness with each other where you can check in. What is going on with everybody? Is everybody doing okay? Because when one person isn't eating, none of us is going to eat. Control your conversations in such a way that these are the conversations that those behind us will be having. You want to set those rules and mentorship strategies and trust. You want to be having, you want to be setting the foundation and setting the table for the CEOs behind you to be that. So mindfulness is not this like yogic practice that happens when you have time or when you have the privilege to calm down. This is something you should be incorporating into your every single day personally. So giving yourself time to rest, reflect, and redistribute so that you can show up in your power, so that you don't have to continue to fall into that surplus of suffering, which is being on the tenderloin of that equation, right? Underestimated means that you're not accounted for in an equation. So from that space of the forgotten folks, what can you offer to those behind you? That's a place of wisdom. Like that's the majority. So interpersonally, rest, reflect, redistribute. Come to your workspace with that reflection and redistribution so that interpersonally we can replicate those behaviors and mindful patterns. So rest. This is like you want to be socializing with the people in your company. You want to be having reflection time. You want to be making sure that everybody's good. Then you want to take all of the lessons that each person is dealing with, and then you want to redistribute those lessons into your business plan and your platform. Because remember, all of you are coming from spaces of underestimation. You're all coming from things that you know in your bones needs attention. So you need to be always bringing those up in your team meetings, in your meals together, at home, etc. And then you need to redistribute, like you need to deploy the mindfulness that you've cultivated internally, interpersonally, and now you need to bring it out into the collective so that your consumer and your user not only feels seen by using your product or your service, but they feel seen by your company, by you as a person. And especially in the times that we're in right now, where everybody needs to be seen and everybody needs to be heard, you have this delicious platform to be able to say, I see you. That's why we turn to technology. We turn to technology to belong. That's why innovations are so important for culture, not just the industry. Like we invest in Bitcoin because there are systems that don't hold us the way that we want to be held. So people can turn to Bitcoin because it speaks to the places which don't feed us, right? We turn to different social media platforms because it sees us in a certain light that at some point we weren't able to be seen in. So mindfulness, where yes, it is definitely something that includes personal practice. Like for me, I meditate every single day, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes around lunchtime, and 30 minutes before I go to bed. I have my own whole entire practice that I participate in. It doesn't have to be that for everybody. But it also comes out in the way that I speak to people and the way that I listen. I don't want to be running my mouth before I realize that the person I'm speaking to has a whole landscape behind them that I didn't even see, right? I want to be listening. I want to be intending that this is an environment that I have placed myself in on purpose with everything that I know in my bones. That everything that had to happen to bring me here is conspiring. That this is mindfulness. So yes, it means meditation for some. It could mean yoga for others. It could mean going on a run or what have you. But it also means understanding why you're here and utilizing those techniques and tools. And then implementing that into your company. Be a little abstract then. So that then your users feel seen. Everybody knows this funnel where it's like, as a business person, especially if you have a product or a new idea, as an entrepreneur, you find a problem and you aim to solve it. And for those, I will say, in an oppressive force, you create a problem and then you create the solution, but you don't solve it all the way because you want people to continue to depend on you, which, by the way, is the exact equation for an abusive relationship. So as an entrepreneur, you can choose healing. You can mindfully put yourself in a place of, you know what, I'm not going to create a new problem that only I can solve. I'm actually going to create a solution that many of us are involved in. I'm actually going to create a solution that hits me where it hurts because I have the ability, the mindfulness, the power, and the stamina to turn towards pain and discomfort. And mindfulness is one of these tools among us that gives you the capability to turn towards not only the pain and suffering of others so that you can create productive solutions that last for generations and generations to come, but it's also a tool so that you, as the entrepreneur and individual, can create solutions that heal yourself, that allow you to have the power, the stamina, and the resilience to turn towards your own suffering of your personal life, your blood, your solutions for your problems that heal the generations before us and that feed the generations that come after us. Working mindfully as an entrepreneur gives you the power to change systems. And if you're an underestimated person working within the system or an industry, technology, or whatever your industry is, you have the make this shift to create a whole new world where people can feel seen in whatever way you need it to be seen. Mindfulness can keep you calm, but it can also change the world. And I am here for that. I know some of you are here for that. And I have 1,001 different techniques that you can do with your company, with yourself, or your own personal life. I'm here for that too. You can contact me if that's the case. But this is what I needed to kind of let you guys know before you make that decision.
All right. Thank you so much, Victoria. But, you know, the thing you said is you did 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. I could barely get past like 10 minutes, you know?
I'm not going to make y'all do that, you know?
Right. So I'm like, if I do 30 minutes, it's because someone's there holding my hand to do 30 minutes. But 10 minutes, wow, that's pretty impressive. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this amazing session and helping us to remember that we have to go within to solve a lot of, well, I go within to solve everything. Sometimes I forget that and I go a little bit crazy, but for the most part, thank you, Victoria, for being that reminder to us all. For informational purposes, the tools information that you reference, if you could put that together for me, I'll make sure that we send it out to the participants via email. Feel free, though, to comment how they can reach you in the comments, or if your profile is complete, you can say that as well. But feel free to write it in the comments so that they know how to reach out to you and get advice, or whatever the case may be. So, but again, blessings. Thank you for joining us. You have a great afternoon. So, and to everyone else, we're going to go into our next session. There's NECPIN's doing a special announcement for female entrepreneurs. So we're going to close out of this screen and be right back with her on the stage. So if you could just give us a minute to close out and then bring her on the stage. Again, thank you, Victoria. I really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, y'all.
All right. So I'll see you guys in another minute. Bye.